Good evening. Welcome to the November 12th, 2019 meeting of the Millis School Committee. I'll start by announcing that this meeting is being recorded and can be viewed on Mondays at 7 o'clock on Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 37. All meeting videos are posted to the Millis Public Schools website under School Committee as well. Jody, do we have anybody signed in? Or Jody's not here. Becky, anybody signed in for open session? All right. Let's go right to student representatives. Dory.
Heath, the coach night is on Monday, at the Medway High School. Open gym is in the high school this week on Wednesday and Friday. Colleges are continuing to visit daily during lunch periods in the conference room of the high school. Nutcracker rehearsals are ongoing in preparation for their shows in December. And the drama club rehearsals are also ongoing in preparation for their shows on November 22nd, 23rd.
Cool. Thank you. Teacher representatives. Patsy.
Okay, so tonight and tomorrow night and Thursday night are all parent conferences happening at the schools by appointment, and so it's busy. And at the Clyde Brown School had some fun last Friday. The Red Sox World Championship. Well, this is the Red Sox World Championship trophy will make a stop at Clyde Brown on Friday, November 15th. Thanks to Krista Baglioni, whose sister arranged this through her work with Red Sox organization. Last pictures with the trophy will be taken while it is here on display. On Monday, November 18th in the evening, poetry will be highlighted following the students' work with Julia Thacker. Beginning at 6:30 p.m., fourth grade poems will be on display for families in the cafeteria, followed by a poetry reading by selected students. Progress is being made on the new roadway parking lot on the site of the old Veterans Day. The first phase of the project, including the new parent pickup drop-off lane, will be ready for use following the Thanksgiving break on December 2nd. At the middle school writers group will begin next week. This is for students in grades 6 through 8 and is being held both during lunch and after school. Mrs. Robinson and I will run it with high school students working again as writing coaches. Middle school book groups will also be held at lunchtime this time on a monthly basis and open to each grade during their lunchtimes. This is a change from after school meetings. At the high school, start off with great news that Millis High School is ranked in the top 5,000 STEM schools in the United States by Newsweek and STEM.org, which Dory knows all about. And last week, Dave Fallon organized the visit from Millis veterans for the 10th grade Veterans Interview Project. Local veterans were invited to meet the students and answer their questions. It was again a very successful and renewed program. And today, another great program, author Karen Treaker visited Millis High School to discuss her book, My Soul is Filled with Joy. In this book, she describes the escape that her mother and father-in-law escaped from her incredible death. She presented to the Millis High School audience and has donated a book to the Millis High School library.
Great. Thanks, Pat. Next, we'll jump down actually to the superintendent's report. She has a couple of awards. We'll start with that, and then review enrollment.
First, I'd like to call up Haley Litterer and her family to the front table. Thank you all for coming tonight. Tonight we have 2 awards, which I'm very pleased to present. These are the NESDEC, New England School Development Council Awards, that are awarded for academic excellence and student leadership. Haley, an elite dancer who has competed at the national level, a nationally competitive kart racer, and an accomplished student and leader at Millis High School, is for the NESDIC Award for Academic Growth and Leadership. Haley was vice president of our student council as a sophomore and junior, and is now president of our student council executive board. She has been an active participant in Amnesty International and the Peer Leaders Organization, and she has held down a job outside of school. Haley has no grade lower than an A on all of her transcripts, which is outstanding when you look at the challenging course load she has taken, including 7 AP courses. A member of our National Honor Society, a Spanish immersion student. Haley was recognized last year by our faculty with the Wellesley College Book Award and has numerous other awards from her academic teachers along the way, including awards in Spanish, AP US History, and for excellence in online learning. It is my pleasure to present this award to Haley. So what we do usually is have you come around and shake everybody's hand, and then we'll do pictures with the committee and your family.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. And Becky, do you mind?
Oh, not at all.
Being the photographer?
Gosh, Leslie might not want to
Maybe I
look
should
like
take my vest off. I did a little dress up for the occasion.
Why don't you
You're in
go
the middle.
center?
You are in
Let's get center
Center of
stage.
attention.
Okay, squish in.
Ready?
Let's stay up there for you.
Got it.
And then just one to superintendent of Haley.
Thank
do
you.
one.
And then
Okay,
we'll
sure.
run with,
Got it.
Just do one.
Thank you. Congratulations again. Sure. Although if it wasn't.
Oh, yeah, I'll let you know
Okay.
when you up.
If it
If it freezes.
locks up.
Yeah.
Screen locks. Also, my pleasure to present another award. So can we have the Sheridan's family join us at the table? Elizabeth Sherns is a highly decorated, nationally competitive gymnast and has spent an immense amount of time outside of school dedicated to her sport. Even with her busy gymnastics schedule, Elizabeth has found a host of ways to not only get involved at Millis High School, but to be a leader amongst her peers. This makes her a great choice for the NESDIC Award for Academic Growth and Leadership. Elizabeth is secretary of our National Honor Society, has been a class representative throughout high school, and this year is serving as co-president of her class. She's president of our chemistry club and has been an active member of the Leos Club. Elizabeth has also been co-director of the Special Olympics program at her gymnastics club. She's also been a straight A student throughout high school and has been recognized in our school with a number of awards, including the Barnard Book Award, along with Excellence Awards in Art, Spanish, and English. It is my pleasure to award you this award, NESDIC Award. Elizabeth, thank you. Congratulations.
superintendent.
One. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Congratulations. And you can,
Okay.
Why don't we go to November enrollment?
Enrollment is in your packets. We've had actually a gain of 6 students since last month due to actual movement in families that have moved in. So we have 5 more at the high school, 2 more at the middle school, and 1 fewer student, 1 less at the elementary school, also 1 less choice student. So for a total of 1,205 students. Also, Mr. Chair, if I may, I have late-breaking news from Mr. Mullaney. This is not in your packets, but I did send it out late today
I saw
when Mr. Mullaney sent it to me. Newsweek has announced that Millis High School is in the top 5,000 schools in the nation, named by STEM.org, STEM being science, technology, engineering, and math. So we are one of the top-ranking schools in the STEM fields for 2020, honoring excellence in science, technology, engineering, and math. And this award is a new one for us, and I'd like to congratulate all of the teachers and all of the students for this wonderful accomplishment.
Thank you.
One last thing I
Yep.
forgot, if I may. Also, one thing I shared with you as a handout are the handouts that Jen Starr and I used as we presented last week. We were invited to present a session at the Massachusetts School Committee Conference on the Cape. We were asked to present on our personalizing learning initiative that we've been working on for several years. So we focused on our learner profiles and pathways that teachers and students develop, and the competency-based learning and assessment grading for learning that we have been working on in Millis. It was very well attended. It was an excellent conference, and there we highlighted some of the foundational work that has gone into this, and also gave them what we hope are very practical examples of some of the work we've done. It was in the audience a mixture of superintendents and school committee members, and they were very interested in how we have promoted this in Millis. So it was an honor to be asked to present there.
Great.
So that's it.
Thank you. All right, why don't we bump up to action items? So we'll just go in order. First, consideration to approve the school committee minutes from October 29th.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
I make a motion to approve the school committee meeting minutes from October 29, 2019.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is consideration to accept a $5,000 check from the Iorio Charitable Foundation. We have a letter in our packet.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
I make a motion to approve a $5,000 grant for general support for the Millis Middle School gift account from the trustees of the Oreo Charitable Foundation.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. I'm gonna skip the next one. Consideration to approve designer selection procedures. And there's, again, a memo. There was a memo in our packet, and Terry can probably speak to the memo. Quickly, we have to approve the procedures there.
This is one of the few procedures the committee has to do by law before we can go out and select a designer for the engineering study that was approved at town meeting.
So, in the memo,
And it's modeled, it's a direct model from the Inspector General's office. There's like, I think there's 2 places where we've inserted Millis Public Schools and Millis School Committee where it's appropriate.
so, as Terry notes in his memo, we can create a subcommittee as large or as small. He has a recommendation, which I think seems reasonable, given that all the final approval has to, and bid and recommendation has to come here for final approval.
The committee would actually review the responses, and then we would have to, by law, again, submit to this group, the school committee, 3 submissions, which we have a ranking. There's, a ranking process, 1, 2, 3, that we would give you, and then you would make the final selection.
This is what we did for Tetra Tech.
Yep.
Yes,
Same- it was the
exactly
same
the same
process.
process.
Mr.
Exactly the same.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
I make a motion to approve the designer selection procedures to study the middle high school roof and mechanical systems, the middle high school roof and mechanical systems as presented in the memo dated November 5th, 2019.
Moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Second to last item, consideration to approve middle school locker expenditures.
And the only thing I would note there is we do have a new quote, which is lower. The new number that we have,
Is $34,542.
542.
Where, is this in the?
Yeah.
I think we did put the new quote in your packet, and I think we uploaded it to the site as well. I'm not sure about that, but
I'm a paper guy, sorry, hold on.
JC's.
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
So instead of it being 39,258, it's 34,542. So I would actually suggest that we just round up and say an amount not to exceed $35,000.
And these are gonna be the same lockers that.
These are the same company, same lockers. They have a state contract. They're probably, at least as far as Massachusetts and New Hampshire, Vermont go, the preeminent locker company that's out there. So we're very pleased with them, I think. I'm looking, Maureen's nodding. I think they're very pleased with the lockers that were installed previously by this company.
Take a motion when anybody's ready.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
I make a motion that we authorize the business manager to accept the quote from J. Solis and Sons for the delivery installation of new lockers for the 7th and 8th grade wing for an amount not to exceed $35,000.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
That's the quickest I've ever been up here.
There we go. All right, the last thing in the action items is consideration to recognize Millis paraprofessionals as Unit C of the MTA unit. I will entertain a motion. I'm recusing myself from any vote or discussion, but I will entertain a motion in a second.
Mr. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
I make a motion to recognize the Millis paraprofessionals as Unit C of the Millis Teachers Association. This was discussed in executive session, and now we have to formally vote in open session.
Been moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mark abstained. He abstained. So Robin and I voted yes,
Okay.
and he abstained from the vote.
So just note that.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. All right, so we'll move to Time and Learning, Middle School Improvement Plan. And look at that, we're actually almost on the same schedule as what the agenda says.
Way to
Don't
go.
jinx, don't jinx. We got stuff to do.
So Dave, I should not try this sound system, just use my own? I'm a DJ now.
You have lights and everything?
This flash. Can you turn the lights off? Can you see better?
How about I'll do that for you. I'll get the lights. Oh, thanks, Steve.
All right. So thank you for coming out in the cold to hear about the plan for the middle school this year. We've got a great bunch of students who are invested in learning and a great bunch of teachers who are invested in making our school environment optimum for learning for those students. I want to start with some highlights from last year that'll give you a little sense of where we're coming from and what we intend to build on this year to keep the momentum going. In 2008, we started with our iPad initiative in grade 8, and it was last year that we finally became one-to-one in the whole school with the addition of some Chromebooks in grades 5 and 6. And that allowed us to have a more unified blended learning approach and bring some consistency to our pedagogy. Using Google Classroom and its learning as LMS for students and online classrooms for teachers to deliver instruction and personalized learning to scale. So I want to clarify that does not mean that our students are 100% of the time on devices all day, every day, in every class. We use technology as a tool to do instruction and learning that couldn't happen without it, and to be able to extend learning for students who are ready and do some reteaching and reinstruction for students who need it. It's helpful for teachers to manage that. We hosted Commissioner Jeffrey Riley last year. He did his tour of the Commonwealth and developed his plan for deeper learning in the Commonwealth schools. We had Deb Hickey present at MassQ conference at Gillette Stadium last year on the walking classroom that she uses with her students. And we nominated her, and she was awarded the NCTA Educator Award last year, which was an honor for her. We also were the recipients of several grants, one from the Department of Education called Project Here, and that supplemented our health curriculum for substance abuse prevention and helping students make healthy choices. Merit was incredibly generous to the middle school last year in supporting our flexible learning environments and flexible seating. Also awarded us a walking classroom grant to Sharon Monahan, which gave us access to podcasts and audio content in a variety of subject areas at a variety of grade levels. Merit also supported our shift to the Next Generation Science Standards with a grant for 8th grade science and aquaponics and 6th grade biome and resilient housing building projects. Yoga mats for some of the SEL work we were doing in grade 6, and a grant for an interdisciplinary math and science Project Claw, to build a claw machine for the 7th grade STEAM Unified Arts class. Some student highlights. We had 3 students who were recognized with Patsy Diver for their writing ability or their submissions to a Will McDonough sports writing contest. And we had our, for the third year in a row, an 8th grade representative for Project 351 to support our, the importance of community service and building. We, in April, were very happy to have new lockers installed in one wing of the building. That gave us a little bit of a facelift. And 2 of our teachers last year participated in project-based learning training through the Buck Institute. 4 more attended this year, and that supports our shift towards design thinking and engineering and more real-world application. Let's see, also Merit supplied some additional technology for us in 6th grade science, a digital microphone that increased student engagement, and some, I believe it was robotics for STEM integration in the technology unified arts classes. Some other student highlights, we had 7th graders represent us at the regional science fair and the state science fair, and 6th graders showcased their project-based learning at the State House in Boston. And we participated in the first cohort of the Fuse Massachusetts program, with 4 of our teachers being Lighthouse classrooms or early adopter classrooms. And the Fuse program pairs teachers from various districts who work together. And we had 2 Fuse fellows from other districts who came to us and worked with these 4 teachers at various points during the school year on developing student agency. And this year we have 2 additional teachers who are part of the next cohort from the middle school, along with 2 high school teachers. So I think that another significant highlight is our improved academic achievement as represented by our MCAS scores from last year. Although the MCAS is just one measure of student learning, we're quite pleased with the results on this assessment that measured more application, higher level thinking, and problem solving skills. So we had a goal to improve 6th grade ELA and middle school math for the last year or so. And in looking at the percentage of students who met the expectations for meeting and exceeding, in 7 out of 8 of those areas in grades 5 through 8, our scores were 10 to 20% above the state, which was a pretty significant showing for us. You have those, I think, those charts in front of you. The same was true for our 2-year average. We were 10 to 20% above the state in all except for 5th grade ELA. We also had, I think it's worth mentioning, an increase in the number of students in the exceeding category. We had in 5th grade, 6th grade, and 8th grade. So in 5th grade, English Language Arts, we went from 3% to 7% in the exceeds category. In 6th grade, we went from 13% to 16%, and in 8th grade from 5 to 17% in the exceeding category. And then in math, we went from 7 to 16% in 5th grade. We went from 10 to 18% in 6th grade, and from 11% to 17% in 8th grade. I didn't include the 2018 scores on your chart, but we had some significant gains there as well. And then our student growth percentiles were comparable to the state average and within the expected range. We had some growth in 5th grade math, and we were above the state average in 8th grade math. So I think this reflects our focus on intervention, our focus on extending learning for students, our alignment to the standards, and matching our assessments to standards. I compared to the DART schools, the middle school DART schools, which are different from the district DART schools. But when I looked at the percentage of 8th grade students meeting or exceeding by town, also including Medway and Medfield as just neighboring districts, we were 3rd for ELA in 8th grade, and again 3rd in math. A pretty solid, strong showing there, I thought. This congruence model from Harvard's Leading Schools program shows the alignment that we want to make and achieve in order to keep moving towards our personalized learning goal. We looked at curriculum and instruction, teaching and learning, the structures and systems that we have in place, our technology, our schedule, roles and responsibilities and reporting structures in school, the attitudes, the skills, the capabilities of our teachers, our beliefs and our visions and how we support those, and does leadership support those? Not only mine, but the teacher leaders, the PLC and the grade level team leaders, and other teachers who simply lead by example. The school improvement plan is pretty comprehensive, but it boils down to about 4 key areas that support the district improvement plan. Those being empowering students to be more engaged and take more ownership, to embed social emotional learning concepts into our curriculum, to cultivate a shared vision with the community, and to continue to develop collective teacher efficacy. So we know that empowered students are engaged students are motivated, motivated students make academic gains and grow. They ask themselves, what do I want to know and be able to do? How will I demonstrate it? What will I do when I'm not learning? And what will I do when I have mastered something? So we're recognizing students for their effort and agency through shout-outs. We're asking them to make a difference by leading by example in their classes. We know that if work has meaning and purpose, then engagement is higher. And we know that this isn't a new idea. So one example this year was when our 7th grade science class combined with high school biology to go out and do a pond study. And the level of student engagement was incredibly high during that time. So we're looking to do more of those kinds of things, either interdisciplinary, cross-grade level, just bring in more real-world project-based learning and more application. We are also giving students tools to use to self-reflect and self-assess so that they can set goals and know where they are as learners and monitor their own progress. We know that we need to be intentional about embedding a focus of social emotional learning, social skills, perspective taking, empathy, into our curriculum whenever possible. Often that comes when they're analyzing literature. That's a prime time for teachers to embed those kinds of topics. We, One thing that we're going to do to try and be a little more intentional this year is to pilot advisories in 8th grade and class meetings in 6th and 7th grade. So the 8th grade advisories will be modeled on the high school advisories. And the class meetings in 6th and 7th grade. And generally, the idea is to develop stronger relationships between teachers and students to make sure our students have a go-to person if they're having difficulty with something, but also to have smaller groups and consistent groups to focus on things like social skills and collaboration skills and teaching kids and anti-bullying and topics like that. We, of course, have lots of programs to support students who need more intervention. We've got high school mentors. We've got counseling groups, small group counseling for students who've identified through screening that would benefit from that. And we're trying to have more restorative conversations when we have disciplinary issues, focusing on perspective taking, what was your impact of your behavior on other people, and how can you fix it? Not just a consequence. So we did look at the Metrowest Health Survey statistics in designing this plan. We were sort of near Metrowest averages in most areas. There was some positive news in terms of protective factors. Students felt safe in school, and they have people they can go to in school and out of school when they need assistance. There were some key areas that the Metrowest folks focused on when they analyzed our data, some key trends. So the reports of adult support at school increased. There were reports of increased use of vaping. There was increased reports of bullying There were increased reports by students of life being very stressful, and especially school-related stress. There were reports that apparently our students are not maybe exercising as vigorously as they have in past years, and spending more time online not related to school or homework. So an increase in bullying and school stress and self-harm, all of that raised a red flag, lots of red flags for us. And when we looked a little deeper, last year's 8th grade reported significant emotional and behavioral challenges, social emotional. 60% of the 8th graders reported stress due to school factors, 60% reported concerns about their peers feeling stressed, 40% reported feeling bullied, 17% reported alcohol use, 19% reported using vapes, and 8% using marijuana. So even one report of bullying or self-harm is cause for concern for us, and it speaks to the critical need for counseling, for embedding social emotional learning in everything that we do, and trying to assist students and families as they navigate an increasingly complex social world. So what are we doing to be proactive? We started the Bridge program at the high school this year to address anxiety and stress in our students that were moving into high school, and some high school students who were maybe not wanting to come to school and turning to self-harm. We also dedicated 0.5 of a counseling position as an SEL interventionist in the middle school, and to support us with Tier 1 programming. We have the Signs of Suicide program in 7th grade, and all of our teachers participated in training at the beginning of the year to identify and recognize signals in students of concern. Again, we're piloting an advisory and class meeting program. We have an anti-bullying presentation coming and a campaign in the works, in addition to what we already do through the MARC anti-bullying program from Bridgewater State. We're doing peer mediator training with 12 students in grade 7 that can hopefully act as part of that restorative conversation and peer mediators. We are doing expert screening, the school nurse and the counselors for substance use, and we just signed up to participate along with Millis High School in a Mass General hospital program to study vaping use in middle and high school, and to support students in trying to quit. We are participating in a combined health fair with the high school. I believe it's in December. We've got various kindness campaigns. Our 6th graders in art are doing an art installation of kindness rocks in a garden somewhere outside, a location yet to be determined. And we're pairing middle school students with high school students as mentors. It's an ongoing focus for us, and we'll be coming up with as many possible ways to address these things during the school year as we can. We would like to continue to build common understanding of teaching and learning, and pull parents and the community more into our schools to see what we're doing and help them understand how our practices support student learning and growth and well-being. We communicate through a variety of media and face-to-face meetings. We'll continue to collect feedback and meet with the standards-based learning working group and do follow-up surveys this year to monitor the transition to 8th grade and high school and 6th and 7th graders. We would like to expand on things like student digital portfolios and our 7th grade learner showcase, for example. We think that people need to see more about what's going on in the middle school, and our students need authentic audiences. So they're presenting not just to their classmates and their teacher, but they're presenting to other people. So this video was the 7th grade showcase that was a pilot last year to give students an opportunity to reflect on their own learning and their own growth, and present to guests who attended. I'm going to hope that the sound works here. Oh yeah, it does.
So I think I could by actually taking the time to think of things and reducing
to actually being as, I don't know, smart. But for a 7th grader, I guess I'm pretty smart. I don't know.
So we just like more of those opportunities for them to reflect on what they did, show off a little bit, and talk about how they grew, to be more aware, more self-aware. Finally, collective teacher efficacy. That's identified as the #1 area that has the greatest impact on student learning in a meta-analysis study recently by John Hattie. And educators need to feel like they make a difference. And I think in Millis, we empower teachers and we recognize them for their efforts and the good work that they do, and we encourage them to take leadership roles and innovate. And at the beginning of the year, I asked the middle school teachers to really self-reflect and self-assess our own practices and what we'd been doing over the last 3 or 4 years. Blended learning, standards-based learning, assessment and grading, personalized learning. Is it working? And the teachers commented that they recognize that when students set goals, it leads to ownership, self-confidence, and self-esteem. They recognize the value of collaboration, and they see kids more invested and more engaged and going deeper. They recognize the value of co-teaching and conferencing with students. We're doing a lot more co-teaching this year to make sure all of our students feel included. They see students more excited, more extending their learning outside the classroom, initiating learning and taking ideas deeper, and their projects are better, and they're thinking creatively and making more connections. So in the end, there was a resounding from the group of teachers, yes, that it's working. Our professional observations, our anecdotal data, what we see in the classroom every day, and the changes that are happening, we believe that we're on the right path. So to sum it up, our school improvement plan, there's a core of things that we're going to continue to doing, and on the plan it says continue. Things like developing relationships with students, blended learning, professional learning communities, providing intervention through tiered system of support, reading and writing across the curriculum and being more consistent and intentional about that, the standards-based learning, assessment, and grading, and aligning everything that we do, and flexible learning environments. And then there are things that, innovations or things that we're exploring that may become part of the core. So developing greater student agency, focusing on project-based learning and building teachers' professional development in that area, more co-teaching models, more interdisciplinary work, whether it's math and science or English and social studies or all subjects together. We'll continue to work with the Fuse fellows through a coaching model. We're talking about how we can integrate more STEM into our curriculum. Our teachers do a passion project each year, and they set professional learning goals. And I would say there's probably a half a dozen teachers who have enriching and accelerating students in their programs as their goal this year. So being very intentional about what does it look like to extend learning for students who are ready to do that. Building a more restorative culture and focusing on social emotional learning. And then to sum it up, I think that what we're trying to do is combine these two models of schools to be a highly effective school with high achievement based on traditional measures of success, and also a learning progressive school that is innovative and looks to the future and thinks about what students are going to need when we don't know what jobs we're preparing them for, and empowering them to be self-directed learners. I think that Millis community has been a progressive community all along. When it comes to education, we don't shy away from innovation. We don't shy away from taking risks and trying new things. We look to the future. We support teachers. The community supports a growth mindset for educators, and if we continue to improve in both areas, I think our students will benefit. Trying to be brief here, I could talk for hours on any of these topics in more depth if you would like at some point. Proud of what's happening in the middle school. I think the middle school staff really would like the community to recognize the work that they're doing, the work that the students are doing. Much of it's self-directed on the part of the teachers. They are just a bunch of wonderful educators who care about children and want to do the best they can for them. So that in a nutshell. Was that under?
I don't know.
I know it wasn't 12 minutes, but.
It's all good. No, yeah. It's interesting that the report card, I mean, double digits in all of the exceeding, meeting, and all the grades, and even, I know you're speaking to what the shifts were from last year to this year, and I was just noting that each one we were jumping 10 to 12, but I think, I mean, you can see it somewhat in the growth, but if you even lined up what individuals, so what last year's 5th grade to this year's 6th, you know, actually what those kids did, the numbers probably were hovering the same, you know, 5 to 7% increase as kids moved, you know, from where they were last year to this year in terms of how we're exceeding.
For the most part.
For the, yeah, for the state. The one question that I had that you already answered to an extent was in terms of the health survey was whether we could or we had the data that showed it between the 7th and 8th grade. So how
We do.
the reason that interests me a little bit is the one that I think in the protective factors that's kind of been declining is the one of I feel part of the school. And, you know, it's gone basically from 81 in 2010, 83 in 2012, 71, 70, 14, 16, and then in 18 we're at 66, which is basically right on what the state average is, but we've seen a decline. And kind of just dovetailing into the crux of some of what we've been trying to assess too when we're sending out the surveys. I know Bob's sending them out from the high schools. As we look at kids going from 8th grade and whether they choose to stay in Millis or whether they go somewhere else, is there a line that, you know, is not tied to the academics or what's offered in the high school? And just kind of looking this idea of feeling part of the school, and if that's declining, is that part of it? And so, for example, something I'd be interested in is, so this year's sophomore class, sophomores this year, were the first grade, that was the grade that had 30 kids leave between 8th and 9th grade. They were in 7th grade in 2016. So the year that they took it was they were 7th grade of 2016, which was up until this year was a low point. So it brought us down to 70% there. And in terms of I've been feeling an adult to the school, we were down at 65, and now we're back up and we're doing, I think it's great, the advisory. Just interested if there was a way to look back at some of these to say, if we could tie kind of what the grade level to see if theirs was, you know, did they bring us down to a 70? Like, if you looked at that 7th and 8th grade that year, was it equal 70% across the whole thing, or was it the 8th graders were still at 85, but the 7th graders were at 60? Just to kind of, again, there's multiple factors as to why kids may choose to go to a different school, but if one piece is they're feeling there's a disconnect, or there's a lack of feeling not part of the school, or feel they don't have a group of friends, that kind of makes them more open to exploring or entertaining options of going somewhere else as they hit 8th grade. So it would just be interesting to see if we dove into that, if we could make any correlations because if you, kind of looking at this, there's it's not the school's 100% responsibility, and there's only so much the school administrators and teachers can do to help this. It's just, it's a fact of middle school, it's a fact of a number of things. But if it's something, I mean, this is, if we look at kind of this section and where we're anywhere from, you know, they have somebody outside to talk to at 95%, but this range of 75 to 80 is those with a class size of 100. That's your 25 to 30 kids that you're potentially at risk for exploring going elsewhere if there's a disconnect or there's disenfranchised or just a feeling of not belonging, and we can't fix it all, but it's just an area that we may be good to look at into.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So the bullying victim, is that specific to the school, or are you a victim of being bullied? I don't know the questions, we're only seeing the.
There's two questions. One asks a report of being a victim of bullying. One is a victim on school property. That's the one on your chart.
So this is the one on the chart. So we are.
They're essentially the same for 8th grade, 40% and 41%.
So this is for so while I can appreciate, and I think they're connected, I feel part of the school. I'm concerned about, we are 11% higher on being a bullying victim, and so now you're saying it's actually on property. So I would put that high on the list of potential reasons why people may be looking elsewhere. They could be running away from bullying. The cyberbullying is not much different than the state average. It's only up 1%. The physical fighting is up 5% over the state average. And then the carrying of the weapon, I'd be curious what they define as weapons. You shouldn't be carrying anything that could be used as a weapon, and that's slightly over. So I feel part of but interestingly enough, I feel part of the school is lower than Metro. I said state. I should have said Metrowest.
Yeah.
I feel safe in my school, 81% to 74%, but the kids are getting bullied. So if I was an 8th grader and I was looking for a change, and I'm in a small school, big family, I may not feel part of that family, and I may be looking to find another family. So, that I think the bullying piece, it's a culture issue, right? And it's as what Mark said, it's not stuff outside of these school walls that you can't control, right? And stuff from outside comes in here, but we can only respond to what we have in front of us in the report card. That red, I'm concerned about the other red. That's a mental health issue.
Yep.
I'm concerned about that red because that red is literally related to what's going on in the four walls during school time.
Yeah, I mean, the other fact, the other things, the alcohol use, the marijuana, I mean, this is just, also again, these are things predominantly would be outside of the school, but this is the stuff I think parents need to be aware of.
Sure.
Because this is self-reporting in parents, and 7% of our 7th and 8th graders are who are reporting. So, are saying that they're, and these are the ones who are willing to admit it on a test, even though it's anonymous. But these are the kids that are willing to say that they have done it. My guess is there's probably another 5 or 6% who aren't going to admit it anywhere.
Right.
But this is stuff that I think we should be communicating, and parents should be aware of, because there is an element to everything on here that is, parent awareness, parent involvement. Parents need to participate in this. They need to be made aware, but then they also need to follow up and be active roles in helping, whether it's correct behavior or whatever.
Fair enough.
So, does this go out?
I would say parents in Millis are very responsive whenever we have to, call them in and discuss issues like that. We just sent a letter out this morning, I believe, about the SBIRT screening that had some of this data on it in terms of substance use from the Metrowest Health Survey. And we'll be sending more out when we give information on the Mass General program.
Yeah, I just think
Yeah.
part of it, and I mean, even I know, and whether on social media and things, we've been much more active on pushing the vaping reports and studies and things, which, again, you can only provide the information. You can't force people to read it. You can't force people to do anything about it. But I think the more active we are on that, and like I said, whether it's there at Finney or whoever, middle school, the high school Twitter feeds are all pushing and reminding out, all these vaping concerns and studies.
Have the bullying reports, the reports being made to teachers or to you, have they increased?
No, so this was a little bit of a surprise to see it that high because it's not being reported to us. So my question is, what are kids interpreting as bullying?
Do they ask in the question, do they give it context to what bullying is?
I don't honestly know. I
They
haven't seen
don't.
the
They
actual
don't define
question.
it.
I
They
don't know
just
if
say,
it's
are you being
defined.
bullied?
Yeah.
Perception is reality, though.
I think, true. I would never want to question
No,
someone who feels that way.
I'm surprised that they wouldn't, in a survey, give at least some examples just to kind of frame it a little bit.
Well, we frame it that it's imbalance of power, it's.
No, I know that, but if they're not
Yeah.
doing that on the survey.
Well, right, because
Right.
face it, the word bullying went from a definition of this to a definition
Right.
of this in about 5 years.
And now if they don't give you any context,
Right,
Someone-
but at the same time, what may not be the kind of standard definition of bullying, is some type of other social,
Meanness.
there you go.
but there's also kids that
Which-
unless one kid hits another kid, that would not be bullying.
Well,
That's an
that's what
assault and battery.
Right.
That's
what I
not,
mean.
Well,
bullying
there's-
is,
But like,
So-
if in this, if there are kids considering bullying the meanness aspect or
Right.
the exclusion aspect, which, depending on who you ask and where you are in the definition, whether it's bullying or not, but that may be part of, if it's meanness and exclusion that's being included in these numbers, that tends to be the things that are not going to be reported to school because it's not.
but can eat up a kid, though.
Right. Yep.
There are things that I think fall under the category of relational aggression when kids are shifting friendships and it gets ugly or mean for a short period of time with a group of friends that are, disbanding and finding new friends and, someone feels left out and,
Right.
by a group, so,
Right.
and may feel that they're being bullied because kids are looking at them. There's all sorts of things, but like you said, perception is reality. If somebody feels that way, we have to act on it. Anytime it is reported to us, we do an investigation. The numbers were high because we haven't had those kinds of reports, so we encourage kids to come forward. Often they won't for fear of retaliation. We encourage parents to call us if, a student's going home and complaining about something, and sometimes we'll get those phone calls, which is good, and we can act on it early. So again, something that's ongoing that definitely we're paying attention to. As well as figuring out, you said feeling part of the school and connected to the school, as well as looking at what we offer for clubs and other kinds of activities besides sports for those kids who aren't involved on teams, and how can we make sure that every student is involved in something in some way, whether it's a club or an activity or connected through a group, an advisory group with a teacher they feel comfortable with or something.
And yeah, I think we talked earlier this year, I think you had mentioned expanding some of the high school clubs to
Mhm.
include, which I think is great for the exact reason. Because if you're not gonna do it, if you're not playing a sport, then there's still something else to do, and it helps connect those, 2 or 3 kids in one grade. Well, there's 2 or 3 kids in each grade, all of a sudden you're at,
Mhm.
10 or 12 kids, and it makes it a little easier.
We had a great board game club last year. We've got technology club. We have pop culture club, art club. So kind of a variety
Yeah.
at the moment. But we're always looking for, new options.
How has the having fifth grade back in Clyde Brown impacted plus and minus? If there's any?
I think we definitely felt a loss at the beginning. I think we still do. It's a different feeling in the building. It's an older feeling. We feel, as a staff, smaller, and you don't get as many ideas when you have a smaller group. You kind of tap out everybody a little more quickly. There's definitely been an impact, I think, on the late bus. Not as many students staying for homework clinic. It used to be a lot of fifth graders. So we're still running a bus, but only one bus this year because we just didn't have the numbers to support 2 buses if they're.
Is that because the fifth graders?
They were the ones who would
They were the
stay
ones-
for most of the clubs and homework clinic on a regular basis. And the older students are involved in sports, so they don't
Right.
always stay for after-school activities and take that bus home. So we're feeling it that way. Otherwise, it's just getting used to not calling it the 5th and 6th grade wing anymore. It's the 6th and 7th grade wing. Definitely feels like there's been a set. We used to be 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. Now it feels like we're shifting to a 6, 7, and then the 8th graders are definitely the leaders of the school, the kind of the seniors. And we're looking to them to behave that way and to model for the other kids that way. I miss them. I miss the 5th grade.
Good.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
No, I thought the improvement plan was very thorough and very, hit a lot of the key points and targeted a lot of the stuff that we've talked about both tonight and over the past year plus. So, we're good. Is there anything we can help with in terms of helping find funding priorities, et cetera, that would be helpful in addressing kind of any or all of any piece of this?
I hate to say that we're in good shape, but we're right now. Thank you for approving the lockers. The 8th graders are wondering when they're going to get, theirs. I think that in the future we'll just be looking to expand some of our science, technology, and engineering programs. Looking to see how we can better utilize time in the middle school to do more interdisciplinary and to maybe have a focus, whether it's project-based learning or STEM or what that might be that will help engage kids and keep them in Millis and provide a pathway into the high school. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're going to have to sign too. A couple of them. Robin. Something passed down.
Dying of coughing over there. I don't have anything on chairman's report. We issued a letter last week that said that an initial kind of once every few year check is going to be done this winter for radon in the Clyde Brown. All the tests from the follow-up tests that we did came back under 4, so there's no actionable readings or results from there. I don't think we have anything from the elementary school building committee. If we want to go to correspondence.
Under elementary school building committee, I just want to reiterate what Patsy mentioned, that because of the great effort and push, they were able to do a lot of the ground earth-moving work to get the parking lot and the new configuration for traffic flow completed about a month earlier than we had thought. We thought it'd be January by the time we could switch our traffic flow, but it looks like they will wrap it up hopefully by Thanksgiving, and maybe the 1st of December we'll start to send out the new configuration and communicate that well to families, that the drop-off area will be completed, and we will not have to utilize the fire road in front of the buildings, so that's very good news.
It's actually more than that, because they look like they'll have the
Permanent.
the final top down, which they anticipated they might have to close us down for 3 weeks
Right, so
in April, and that won't happen. So this is a really good thing.
yeah, the final paving to be completed, and curbing, et cetera. So
Yeah, so they have really worked hard.
That's great.
yeah. So in your packets also are the articles from the Millis Medway News. We have several students who have earned AP Scholar Awards, an announcement of the 6 people who will be, and teams inducted into the Millis Hall of Fame for athletics. A nice article on Tino Oliveri on the football team, and the article on the radon testing at Clyde Brown.
We have no older new business. We will be adjourning to executive session, not to return to open session for consideration to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with paraprofessionals and transportation.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Callahan.
I make a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with paraprofessionals and transportation, not to return to open session.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. It's a roll call vote. Robin?
Yes.
I'm an aye. Steve?
Yes.
All right, it's 3-0 in favor. So we will adjourn to open to executive session. Our next meeting will be next Tuesday, November 19th. See you all then. Thanks. Have a good night.